So here's some of the key challenges. So right now, every hour we live, because we live in such an energy-rich and energy-cheap society right now, for every one person, we are using 58 people's worth of human labor every hour. Right now, we're using the equivalent of about 58 people's worth of energy. The other thing about energy, food production. Food is probably the most important thing apart from water, right? But food production, well, for every 1 calorie of food you eat, it takes up to 10 calories of fossil fuel inputs. And that's for things like fertilizers, processing, transport, packaging, and storage. The US food economy actually uses about as much as the entire economy of the UK. The other thing, economic growth. There's actually a lot of people, a lot of researchers and experts that say that the economic crash a few years ago was related to oil production because it's becoming more and more expensive to drive. It's actually damaging the economy because a lot of us live in suburbia, which is a really energy-intensive place to live. But the thing about economic growth is it requires a smooth supply of energy. If energy is doing that, even if it's still at the same level, the economy can't deal with that because we need predictivity. If we actually have a peak energy situation, that implies economic contraction. So the economy is also a factor in this. So a lot of people say, well, the response to peak oil could be to escalate our use of coal because we still have lots of coal, right? Well, of course, the other issue, as you well know, is the environment. Some of the solutions which make sense with peak oil, when you combine it with the environment, don't make sense. Stockholm University, they actually did a study looking at a number of key environmental thresholds. Atmospheric aerosol loading, chemical pollution, climate change, ozone depletion, the nitrogen cycle, the phosphorus cycle, freshwater use, land system change, and biodiversity loss. So this great green area in the middle here is the safe zone. So we've exceeded those on biodiversity, climate change, and nitrogen cycle. We're getting close on the others. Oh, look, we're doing pretty well on these two, right? Well, actually, no, we haven't quantified it yet. So the environment is a really important issue. A lot of things that make sense with oil to replace oil don't make sense environmentally. So I became aware of peak oil about 2 years ago, and I think about it every day, and I've been thinking a lot about the ramifications of what it means that the oil and the energy, which pretty much everything we do depends on, is about to go down. I think it took me a year to really start fathoming what it means. So, you know, it's really, I find it really difficult, and, you know, a lot of you haven't heard about this before, so, you know, it may be difficult to hear, but take it as it comes. So with that in mind, here's some of the effects that will probably come out of a peak oil situation. First of all, the global supply chains, which depend on cheap energy, cheap oil. Remember, most transportation fuel comes from oil, is likely to shrink. With that in mind, we're not going to be getting our food from China anymore, so food production is going to become more localized. We also won't have the fertilizers and the pesticides anymore to boost food production, so food production is actually going to go down. Transportation, of course, oil is a transportation fuel. The other thing is that there is no replacement for kerosene, which powers airplanes. So even if there's alternative fuel for cars, no alternative has yet been found for airplanes. Products that depend on oil, plastics, for example, paints, asphalt, synthetic rubber, those things with peak oil and the decline, what's going to happen to those products? Political, economic, and social effects, I'm just going to leave it at that. It's very broad, but, you know, think about this for yourself, read up on it. The other thing, I guess, that it all comes down to is a downsizing of everything exercised at scale in modern society. So you know, if you haven't heard about this before, you might think that I'm crazy, right? Well, actually, there is a lot of talk about it right now. Back in 2007, the Board of Supervisors established the San Francisco Peak Oil Preparedness Task Force, which Supervisor Mercarimi can talk about later. He was instrumental behind that. That was a report on San Francisco's vulnerability to rising fuel prices and the scarcity in oil and natural gas. The report was finished in March last year and was presented in September. There's actually been a lot of peak oil official governmental acknowledgement, not on a federal level, because apparently they can't talk about it, but on more local levels. Minnesota and Connecticut are both set up task forces, or Connecticut did. Minnesota made a resolution which was vetoed. But on the municipal level, you can see these places here: Berkeley, Nevada City, Oakland, San Francisco, Sebastopol, Portland, Eugene, Austin, Bellington. All these places have made resolutions about peak oil. There's also actually been a huge amount of action on the Bay Area level. Transition US specifically formed to address this issue. Eco-City Builders, Sustainable Business Alliance, Post-Carbon Institute. PCI here is really one of the great seeds of Bay Area awareness about peak oil. And Bay Localize. So that's kind of an overview. I've kind of gone through it very quickly. I could have picked out any one of those issues and drilled more deeply into it. But here's some of the summary points. The changes are happening now. If we peaked in oil production, that means the changes are already with us. It's not in the future, it's now. Oil production is inevitable. I should have said peak oil production is inevitable and likely soon. The scale is likely to be one of the big themes of this change, which is why I think now you can see why I mentioned the farmers market earlier and Garden for the Environment, community building, they're local scale initiatives. That's why local scale initiatives are so important. It's because the scale, the globalized scale, which was facilitated by cheap energy, could soon be coming to an end. A perfect swap out for oil is unlikely. The chances are is that solar, wind, hydro are going to help ease the transition. They're not replacements, but they're going to help. So if you can get a solar panel on your roof, by all means, it's a great idea. And there is already significant acknowledgement of peak oil. I'm not the only person talking about it. A lot of people are.